So I purchased the SoloMotorsports lower control arm, factory length. To complete my front end rebuild, I decided to just go ahead and spend the money, even though I just recently rehabbed these stock lower control arms. I've never really had any issues with the stock arms, but I know some guys, especially the guys that do more high-speed stuff, sometimes have issues with the cast piece here because it's essentially just riveted to the arm. Sometimes these rivets can start to pull through. You can get cracking here and ripping of the metal. There are gusset kits available for that, but realistically having one piece is always going to be stronger. And you can tell by just by looking at this solo arm, you can tell the quality difference. This is the welds, and it's just really a really nice looking piece. You can see it's gusseted on the inside. It's significantly more beefy. Just by looking at it, it has integrated bump stop here, and the lower ball joint cup is way bigger compared to the stock arm. It's just a really nice piece. I did measure. I used my kind of janky measurement system to measure the ball joint, and if we go here, its center line is maybe 5 3/4. The stock arm, you can see that the center line is about 4 3/4, so it is a full inch further forward as advertised. And just for my own curiosity, I weighed both these arms, and oddly enough, even though this arm is significantly beefier, I guess because it's doesn't have this cast piece in it, they weigh almost exactly the same. Also, this arm is angled slightly, as you can see here. Let's try this way. It's angled slightly up, a little bit of nice ground clearance here under here, instead of just having a straight arm down like a lot of them do. Having this angle really, it doesn't seem like much, but it helps quite a bit for ground clearance. It's like I said, the biggest draw of this is the ball joint being moved forward and having the caster built into it. Between this and my upper control arm, which adds about 1 degree, half to 1 degree of caster, I should be at 3 degrees of caster with the alignment cam set in a neutral position, which is huge. Not having your bushings bound, you basically, when you try to get your caster on a normal truck, you have to set the alignment cams so they're sort of pushed outwards or inwards, depending on which side of the arm you're talking about. And what that does is it puts the bushing under a constant tension, and that wears out your bushings faster, makes your ride more harsh. The solo arm does come with bushings. So for these polyurethane bushings, you can see they come with, this is one side set, so you got a short one and a long one for the smaller end here, and you got 2 long ones for the longer end back here. So for these, you don't want to use any lube on the bushing itself here. You want it to sit tight in here. You don't want it to be spinning around inside the arm. There we go. Rubber mallet, easy peasy. Same thing for this side. Okay, so I got the long side in here, and then for the short side, you want to take the long and the short bushing. The long bushing is going to go on the inside of the arm. Get that in there, and then the short one's going to go on the outside of the arm. Yeah, there you go. You can just squeeze those suckers in there. All right, And then for the sleeves, pivot sleeves, obviously the long sleeve is going to go with the longer arm, and the short sleeve is going to go with the shorter arm. For pivot sleeves, what I like to use on anything that's going into a poly bushing, I use Super Lube. It just works, seems to work well. It's compatible. So let me go put that in my gun so I don't get it everywhere. So for these pivot bushings, my grease gun broke, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some grease, slide it to the middle, work it all around inside that bushing. These bushings have nice little grease canals in them. That's help the grease get dispersed inside. Okay, once you have it nice and grease, I take this bushing, I put a very thin layer. If you put too much on this, it just tends to get squished out anyway. And then what I do, I don't know if this is the right way, but this is my way. I get the bushing, or I get the pivot started. Make sure it's in a nice straight line. There we go. And then I take a bolt with the fender washer here. Slide that through there. Alright, now I got those in there. I'm gonna clean this thing up a little bit. I'm going to clean up my workbench here. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you the installation. You go ahead and remove the lower shock mount bolt first. Next, you're going to remove the tie rod from the lower ball joint. Remove the lower ball joint from the control arm. I use a ball joint removal tool for this. Next, we're going to start removing the control arm bolts. I have bolts. If you don't have aftermarket alignment cams, you'll just have the alignment cam bolt and sleeve combo. So it'll be a little bit different than this, but the idea is the same. So interesting to note here, you can see I have my cam set all the way inwards here in the front. In the back I had it set almost all the way outwards, I believe. So you can see how much I had to torque the arms to get my caster even in the ballpark. So now that I have all the control arm bolts and cams loose, I'm going to remove the boot from the steering rack to get it out of the way, and then I have to loosen up this side of the rack so I can push it up out of the way to pull that bolt out from the rear. the new arm into place, I like to use anti-seize on the bolt shanks, just on the shank and the back of the alignment cams, just so they don't get seized up in the bushing. Just try not to get any on the actual threads. Go ahead and slide those in. You can see I now set the cam in the neutral position instead of having it cranked inwards to get my caster, since it's now built into the arm. So because I'm running the KPO cam eliminator kit, I can reinstall the bolt with the long ways facing inwards. That way I don't have to worry about moving the steering rack out of the way every time I want to pull it in and out. If you still have the stock cams, you'll have to put them back in the same way you pulled them out. You can see I went ahead and installed the rear arms to neutral as well, since I don't have to crank them outwards to get my caster anymore. Go ahead and snug the cam bolts tight, but don't torque them down yet until you have the truck back down on its own weight. That'll keep the bushings from deforming. So from there, it's just putting everything back together. Just remember to go back and follow the proper torque procedure for all the bolts that you removed. So they're fully installed. I torqued the alignment cams down. Everything looks good. They're set at neutral and the caster is already pretty much more than enough. You can see how much clearance they have here and where it's sitting in relation. I gotta adjust the toe a little bit on this side, and on this side it's pretty badly towed out, so I'm gonna adjust the tie rod on this side and get it close enough and then take it to the alignment shop and get him to dial it in. But a huge improvement, just being able to run those cams at neutral instead of having them torqued out and have all the caster already is huge. It's worth the money in my opinion. All right, toodaloo.